Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Well, yes, right now in Warzone, we've got plenty of absolute top tier options that we've known about for, some time now. The meta as a whole has been pretty consistent for the past couple of updates, featuring some top rifles, top SMGs, so on and so forth. But there are a handful of underrated sort of sleeper weapons right now that are so close to being at the top, but they're just a little bit off meta, if you will, for one reason or another. And today, I wanted to take a look at the top 5 best underrated or off meta weapons and the best setups for them, starting first with a weapon that truly just does not get the credit it deserves in the STB-556. Obviously, it's an MW2 rifle, so that inherently means that it's a little bit more awkward and clunky than other ideal MW3 rifle meta options, right? But with this, it's actually got a TTK that is in every single way competitive with the best options in the game, and it's got phenomenal range too. It's a super aggressive rifle, so you can fight with this at 25, 35, 45, 55 meters, and at all those ranges, it's going to be a top TTK contender. It is unfortunately really limited by its ammo and of course its MW2 weapon feel, but that said, this thing is still very practical. So as far as the optic goes, matter of preference here. If you want a 2.5 times, run it. If you want a glassless like I use, run it. Use whatever one you are the most comfortable with all the time there. For the mag, like I said, this is what's so limiting. Only a 42 round mag, and we have a 740 RPM. So you burn through ammo. Luckily, with the ammo you do have, you're gonna fry. You'll knock players down real quick. You're just gonna have to reload a lot. Hopefully you got time to do so, because there will be 2 or 3 players knocked when you are getting to that reload, but it is something to be mindful of, and definitely the biggest con of this weapon, and really what's stopping it from being a true meta option. Paracord under barrel on here I think is great, helps out that control, makes it a lot more predictable. Plus you get some decent movement out of it with sprint to fire, base movement, some decent strafe on there too, so just a tad bit more aggressive overall. Quartermaster suppressor turns this already very easy to use weapon into a laser beam. Like, you're gonna be so accurate with those 42 shots. That's obviously super important there. And then I like the rear guard barrel on here too. Better range, a little bit better velo as well. 781's not crazy good for velocity, but it works. Then you get a great damage range as well there. So don't sleep on the STB. Yes, that's an MW2 gun. Yes, it's not a super popular choice, but it's actually way better than you might think. Next up here, we actually have a weapon that has been the best in its category several different times throughout the year, but because it's a slightly more difficult weapon to use, a lot of people just don't really resort to using it. It's the MCW 6.8 Marksman. Because it's a marksman, players usually flock to the Kar 98K as like their #1 marksman choice, but also semi-auto, which means it's got a much higher skill gap than your basic rifles or battle rifles or LMGs or whatever else, right? But it's a true contender throughout. It's got a ridiculous velocity stat, one of the best in the entire game, really solid TTK over range, and it's a lot more forgiving than pretty much every other marksman. It just, because of the skill gap, is not a weapon that a lot of players lean to. It's got a low pick rate, and that's why it's kind of considered off meta here, despite the fact that it absolutely can contend with the meta weapons. So 2.5 times Eagle Eye I think works great here. You're largely fighting in the mid to long range, so you got good visibility, good zoom in with that. The 60 round extended mag, just not something you'll see on other marksmen, and that's why this is so forgiving. You get a huge safety net to just spray and pray, which is obviously very clutch. The Spire point rounds exclusively on this thing are just so crazy good for velocity. 49% increase. You got almost a 1500 velo. It's going to be hit scan in every single range you're realistically fighting in, which makes it a lot easier to use, all things considered. Ruin heavy support's really clutch on a semi-auto weapon like this. Yes, while you're spamming it, you're going to get some better control, but also it's got better firing aim stability and idle sway, so recentering is going to be better. It's just going to make the weapon as a whole, as a semi-auto choice, a lot more consistent. And then I like Spirit Fire here. You're getting some control, a little bit of velo, a little bit of range. That's a great choice. If you're super comfortable with this, Sonic Suppressor will put you up over 1500 velo. Unnecessary, but something you could mess around with if you want max recoil control. Even with Quartermaster, you got a 1390 velo, so you got some options there for sure. All of them are good, as is the MCW in a ton of fights. Truly a slept on weapon from start to finish this year, but one that I have personally really enjoyed. By the way, as we are going through all the weapons here today, if you're new to the channel or if you have not subscribed yet, every single day I got you covered with everything you need to know about COD. Obviously with Black Ops 6 coming up here so soon, gonna be really important to stay up to date with all of the new announcements, post reveals and everything going on for launch, so no better place to be than right here to make sure you're in the know. Feel free to hit that subscribe button to guarantee you're always up to date. And if you enjoyed this video, you want to help share it around to new viewers, a like rating is always seriously appreciated as well. Next up here, another choice that's actually sort of been on again, off again meta this year, the SOA Subverter. It was really good for some time, then it caught some nerfs and it really fell out of the meta harshly, but ever since we've seen other adjustments take place, it's slowly climbing back up, and it's actually now just a pretty consistent option through the mid to long range. It's not going to be the absolute number one craziest TTK or craziest damage or anything. It's just really competitive, but it's slept on a lot just because it is a battle rifle, a little bit slower. Recoil, kind of that S-curve pattern's a little awkward for some players. Luckily, this setup attacks that a little bit, and I think it's a really fun setup to use. I love the iron sights on this thing, so I don't even go for an optic here. If you really needed one, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but 50 round extended mag, basic choice here, of course. High grain is really what I think is more valuable than an optic, all things considered. Getting 15% across the board to range and velocity, I think is clutch. The velo here is not, you know, superb by any means. 978 with high grain on there is all right. Ideally, it'd be up over 1,000 or to 1,100 like a lot of other main rifles are, but it works. It'll get the job done all right. But if you absolutely need an optic, you might want to switch out high grain for that. Paracord under barrel, yet again, decent control, decent mobility on there too. Quartermaster suppressor for the max recoil control, making this thing super easy to use. And then Dozer 90 long barrel, range, velocity, and control here. Awesome little 3-in-1. Obviously very important for optimizing it for mid to long range. So that's a pretty clutch one. Like I said, you can mess around if you really needed an optic, but for the most part, I think the irons here are very clean, even in some long range fights. And this thing does hit if you're able to stay accurate. Hey everyone, real quick, want to give a huge shout out to my friends over at Gamer Advantage. You guys know by now, if you're active viewers here on the channel, that I am always rocking my Horizon frames. These are by far my favorite frame style and fit, but they got a little bit of something for everyone. Multiple different frame styles and different colorways for all those frame styles. They offer prescription and regular lenses, so no matter what your situation is, if you're looking at screens for long periods of time, whether it is school, work, whatever the case may be, Gamer Advantage is a must-have. Reduce your eye strain, sleep better at night. They're doing so much for you. They truly are game changers, and that's why I'm wearing mine every single day. If you ever want to get a pair for yourself, throw in code IMMORTAL at checkout, and you'll get a nice little discount. The link for that will be down in the description below. Now, I've seen a lot of talk about the HRM9 lately. A lot of, I think, over-exaggeration, maybe some clickbait tweets here and there, whatnot, about how, oh, this is the new #1 SMG. It's not the #1 SMG by any means there in any way, shape, or form, but it is certainly competitive. But people often look to the Supri, the Static, the Striker, the Wasp 9, all sorts of options like that. The HRM9, ever since it was nerfed a while ago, has been an oftentimes overlooked sub, but actually, because it's received some updates lately, it's not that far behind some of those other top tier SMG choices, which is awesome because I love the feel of this gun. It's a super aggressive build that we've got here. I personally like the light stock just because the movement benefits are going to be solid, but the cons are not going to be as harsh as using no stock. Your control gets hit a lot with no stock as opposed to a light stock here, so you can maybe test this out, especially because we do have Quartermaster on there, and see how no stock would feel. But for the most part, I think most players will be opting for the light stock for feel instead. Quartermaster obviously though going to be great for control regardless. Thorn 90 long barrel, some better movement with ADS, sprint to fire, some general sprint speed, decent hip fire as well if you're transitioning from spraying and praying hip fire into ADS in the close range. Just makes it a lot more aggressive, obviously. Paracord under barrel here is great as well for some good control and some good mobility too. And then the 50 round extended mag on there as well for our basic extended mag and the max option there. Velo is not great here, so you don't have much going into the mid range, but for a run and gun play style, this is a really fun setup right now. And then lastly here, another build from MW2 that is just so close to being a true contender in the Vaznev. Out of all the MW2 subs, this one throughout pretty much the entire year has been the option that's been the closest contender to the top MW3 subs. It just never really got over the hump, if you will. But for an off-meta style of gameplay, this would be a really good choice. I think it's a really easy SMG to use. It's got a decently good TTK and pretty good range as well, especially with this build on there. So 45 round extended mag is going to be very basic. It's not great. It's not a 55 or a 60 or whatever else, but 779 velo, you'll kind of burn through that quickly. But with its decent decent TTK, you'll be all right. That's not going to be like a drastic con or anything, only having 45. High grain ammo, better range, better velocity. When we're stacking this and then also the cast 1 barrel, we end up with a 16-meter effective damage range. That's really good for an SMG. Then a 684 velo for a hit scan range that's well beyond where you're going to realistically fight with this thing. So that kind of gets you all set for good range and really good consistency up close. And then again, we've got that deadly duo of paracord for strafe, for general movement, for control, and then obviously quartermaster for max control here too. I think you could definitely test around with something like Sonic and get an even better damage range, even better velocity. You could you know, definitely see how that would feel as opposed to having more control. Really a matter of preference there and what you're trying to get out of the weapon and how you're trying to, you know, optimize it for your style of play. But the Vaznev, definitely in my opinion, the best MW2 sub and so close to being a true contender, just slightly out of the meta right now. But yeah, those are 5 really fun options in my opinion. If you're looking to get away from the boring, very monotonous kind of dry meta, switch it up with some of these, you'll be set. These are some really you know, enjoyable and fun choices for sure. That is going to wrap things up though. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating would be really appreciated, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.